is October 1945. The war in the Pacific is over. And two people are going to meet that they don't know it at the time, but they're about to participate in a very momentous event. It's at a USO dance. This young man named Wesley from a little town called Wollaston, Pennsylvania. Actually, it can't be really called a town, it's a village. Really small. 16 and a half, he ran away from home to join the Navy when the war started. And he's in this USO dance, and he looks across the rooms, and he sees three young ladies. Not very tall. Shortest one, about 5'1", named Annie. The taller one, about 5'4", named Viola. But it was the middle one with the dark, long black hair, dark eyes. And he focused on her and asked her to dance. Her name was Vera. Well, they fell in love. They got married in June 1946. Though they didn't know at the time, they were about to experience a momentous event. Because 14 months later, they had their very first child, little Danny, 1947. Now, my parents had this feeling or this philosophy that they didn't want me to be alone. And every time it seemed that I looked around, I had a brother, I had sisters. And between 1947 and 1954, they had 5 children. So I was never alone. But growing up in the city of San Francisco was great for me. I mean, we had these little things that you could turn on and lights would go on. My dad had bought a television. And even though it was black and white, I saw Howdy Doody and the Lone Ranger. They could take me to the movie theaters on Saturdays and see color cartoons. And we had parks with grass on it and bathrooms. It was pretty good. I mean, it's a busy city, and it was really fun. But in late 1953, my dad got ill, and he passed away in April 1954, at 27 years old. A young man. But he left my mother with 5 children. The youngest was a month old when he died. Now, this was pretty tough for my mom. She tried to do it in San Francisco. We still lived there. We still had the television. We still had the lights. You know, it was all right for me. You know, I saw animals in a zoo. The closest animal I ever got to was a cat. Well, she decided, before I went to 3rd grade, that we were going to live with my grandparents. Now, she comes from a little town. Well, it's not a town. It's a village called Peñasco, New Mexico. It's in the northern part of New Mexico, Sangria de Cristo mountain ranges up to 14,000 feet. And my grandparents had a farm, about 25 acres. And I remember, now my mom had to be really brave to take 5 kids on a train, 2.5 days, across part of the country. How she did that, I don't know. But I remember we got off the train, this little town just outside of Santa Fe, we got in this little car, and we were riding up to these mountains. I've never seen mountains before. And I had my window, my face against the window, and I was looking at trees. And then we came across this river, and there were beavers in the river. I thought that only happened at Disneyland. And we were going across this road and keeping on going, and we finally turned off. And I saw this mud house. My grandparents lived in an adobe house, 4 rooms. And there was this farm there. It had an old gray barn. There were animals all over the place. And we get out there and we look at it. And there's no light switches. They didn't have a television. They didn't even have a phone. And the worst thing, I mean, really the worst thing is, they had no toilets. They had an outhouse. And they didn't even use toilet paper. They used the Sears catalog thing for toilet paper. Now, my grandparents had this thing that kids had to do things called chores. Now, I knew what a chore was. You take this little bag from the trash can, you go outside and put it in another big trash can. That was the chore. Well, they had these animals. Cows, chickens, horses, dogs, all kinds of pigs. I'm 8 years old. I'm a city boy. No lights, no electricity, no water, nothing. I mean, they even had a wood stove. And so my grandfather, now they're from northern Mexico, they speak Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish. My mom did, they did. But in their very broken English, my grandfather told my brother and I, you're going to go get the cows and put them in the barn. Why? I don't know. Now, I had never seen a cow before. So I walk across this field, and I see the cow on the side there, and my brother, 7 years old, and I on the other side of the fence looking at this cow. Now, cows, when you look at them sideways, they look like cows. And we walk, and then we get to the front of the cow. And the cow has these big brown eyes. And he had big horns. Big horns, I thought. And a cow has a little face, but a big, big body. And it was eating this grass. And it looked up at us. And my brother and I got so wide. We got so scared, we started running back to the house and telling my grandpa, Grandpa, that's a bull, he's going to chase us. Because I know my brother had a red shirt. And we saw that in the cartoon. And he goes, that's a milk cow. Well, over the time we were there a year. Now, one of the things about where that was, we were about 7,000 feet in the air. Snow. I went to school in a bus. I got to walk in the snow to school. I got to do all those kind of crazy things. But you know what? I really hated it. I hated it. In fact, and the interesting thing is when my mom would go back there for vacation to visit grandparents, and I had to go back and do chores, I really hated it. So as I became an entrepreneur, had my own paper route, said, I don't want to go back anymore. At 13 was the last time I went. Well, about 30 years later, my mom wanted to go visit one of my sisters and visit her aunts in New Mexico. And I went with her. So as we're driving there, she's showing me, and we're getting up there, and I looked around. This was fall. And you know, there are beautiful pine trees. And you open a window, the pinyon tree, the smell of that, amazing. And they're aspen, they turn this beautiful yellow. And I told my mom, this place is really pretty. She says, yeah, it's always been pretty. And what it brought back to me is, you know what, there's a valuable lesson there. All the time as a kid, I looked at the bad things about the place, what I didn't like. And when I went there, 30 years later, I saw all the good things that were there. The beautiful country, it was so quiet. The water was so clear, so clean, it tasted great. I just didn't look for it. So the lesson for me was, look for the good things and don't complain about the bad.